Hey everyone, what's up? Shadowlands back from another video. Today I'm going to be doing a first look video at Deadly Dunes, the pros and the cons of this new map that they have released. We kind of saw it coming with the voting competition they had a while back where they released the 3 different maps, Crystal Tower, Deadly Dunes apparently is what it's called, and that space station looking map. However, we've only seen 2 of them so far. On the other hand, there is another map called Hell's Gate that's planning to be released in early September from what we've seen. And there's a very small picture of it that you can see in the banner Combat Arms is currently using on their website and in-game as you're loading the map. You can see a tiny portion of it. I will include the picture at the end of the video if you guys haven't seen it. But let's dive into Deadly Dunes and get a first look at this map. Things that are good about it, things that are bad about it, and things that they probably could have done better. So there are, first of all, things that I do like about the map. It's gigantic. I love that. I love large maps. The new heavy metal map and also the old pump jack map. Those are both pretty big maps. Greyhammer is gigantic. I like those because it makes it feel more like Battlefield, feels more dynamic to a degree, although this one's less on the dynamic side, more just straightforward fighting, but it's very, very nice and reminds me of Battlefield. Any kind of weapon except shotguns can excel here. That's a thing that I really like about this map. Although I do like my shotguns, it can make it a very interesting challenge to try to use it. Shotguns are incredibly terrible for this map, which can make them both fun to use, but also very difficult. Would never suggest using them in a clan war. It requires a lot of teamwork to completely dominate a team on this map. Same with Crystal Tower. It takes a lot of timing, a lot of planning ahead, and maybe even TeamSpeak, some voice chat programs that you guys can really work together to get a team dominated. But you can also go solo fairly easily. You can see people and creep up behind them and all that kind of stuff. It's a very open map. Really tests whether you can aim or not. If you can aim well, a lot of your shots are going to hit, and it's not about peeking. There's not too many peek spots except on the dunes, which are a big problem. I'll get to that later. Very strategic. I love maps that are very strategic like this. Crystal Tower is another good one. It's like playing chess, where you have to outmaneuver the team one person at a time rather than take on the whole world at once. And while you can try to do that, you're probably not going to do so well. The map is really meant to kind of, you know, take on an entire team, but take them on one at a time. Don't take on everyone at once. It's very balanced in terms of the main part of the map. The central area is season secure-like, open grounds for anybody, and there's no real better side unless you're getting closer to the bases. Everyone has equal opportunity, which is the important part. And one of the best things about this map is that duels are near useless here because of the range and recoil. Since you have to be really close to make duels effective, this map just blows that out of the water. Duels are near useless here. The Sandstorm idea on top of that is very innovative for Nexon, and it provides a very interesting way to fight that we've not seen before in this game. Even Dark Forest didn't completely blind you, it just made it so your vision was kind of skewed. Next up is the tanks, all the tanks that are scattered throughout the map. It makes perfect cover and provide very useful shields. Of course it fits with the scenery and the setting, but it's a very interesting idea, and I like the way they work, how you can peek around little corners on them and that kind of stuff. It's very interesting for surveying the enemy without actually, you know, getting caught or getting found. The depth and height of the dunes gives the perfect amount of variation, like with how deep they go and like how big the dunes go, how high they get. Perfect variation to plan flanks and outmaneuver individual people. If you're getting attacked by a lot of people or flanked by a lot of people, you're probably screwed, but if you're just trying to outsmart one person, it gives you a lot of different tactics you can use because you can move around without them seeing you, but being in plain sight at the same time. The spawns are very far away from each other, so base rape is less of a problem. Even when it happens, it's much easier to get out of base rape because it takes people longer to get back to your base, which is really cool. I like maps that are kind of anti-base rape. That's really good. Which means that if you can successfully base rape, then you're probably a really good player too, so that says a lot about you. Now on to the things I don't really like. There's too much Sandstorm. I love the mechanic, very nice, but make it less frequent. There's too much of it. One of the sides also doesn't have a proper spawn house. You just kind of spawn out in the middle of somewhere. It's like, who thought of that? And that same side is the only one that has a proper sniper tower. Maybe to balance that, but I think both sides should have a proper sniper tower. And with that, with the sniper tower and a whole bunch of other things, there's a lot of kill stealing. Since it's such an open map, yes, you can see everybody a lot of the time, but it leads to a lot of kill stealing. And that's really interesting, especially when assault rifles have limited range on this map. One thing I really don't like about this map is that you have to run backwards to your spawn in order to catch some enemies. People walk by you, and you have to turn around to get them, leaving you completely open. And leaving yourself open on a map like this is a really bad thing. Also, really simply, one thing I hate about this map, and I was touching on this earlier, is peeking on the sand dunes and peeking behind the tanks. Mother of God, the peeking is horrible in those two spots. Next up, RPGs are extremely overpowered if they're used from the high perches of the spawns. Since they go on for pretty much forever, you can spam RPGs and you're almost guaranteed kills. The dunes make it incredibly easy. All the craters, it's very easy to get kills with RPGs. They're incredibly overpowered. If someone sits back and uses those, it would break Clan Wars if they were to bring RPGs into Clan Wars. Next up, the map is too dark. Even when the sandstorm isn't blowing, it needs to be brighter. I mean, I know it's a desert. I mean, we're in the desert. The sun should be blazing like on Oil Rig or Pump Jack. Those maps are very bright. We like those bright, vibrant maps. Not enough high points. That's another thing I really don't like. There should be a tower or a building somewhere in the middle. That's one story with an accessible roof or snipers in the middle. This would make the game far more interesting, and it would make people want to get to that point. Sort of like the tower in Wave Rider. It's like a season secure point where everybody wants to be there, and whoever can hold control of that is going to hold the tide of the battle for a little while. And also trying to take that position away from other people would prove a very interesting mechanic. Also, I was personally hoping for an underground area with like tiny shelters you could come up out of in the middle of the map, sort of like Snow Valley, how you can go underground and then come up at several different areas in the map. It could also be like in the form of pitfalls. You could like pitfall through certain little sand dunes, and then you could fall through to the bottom area, and then you couldn't get back up that way, but you could fall down that way. It's just, also, the map isn't very dynamic. Because it doesn't have a lot of these things, it doesn't have more buildings, it doesn't have an underground area, it doesn't have all these, like, little things, it's not a very dynamic map. It's a big map, so it's dynamic in the sense of it being big, but in terms of, like, what's actually in the map, there's nothing special about it. It's very flat. I mean, yeah, it has all the dunes and things, but it's not special. It doesn't take a lot of creativity to come up with a map like this. It's not dynamic that way. While there are perks to simple maps, like at least the simplicity of Death Room and Junk Flea and Cold Seed, just very simple maps with hallways and walls are interesting, and they provide a different experience, like, for pretty much each life. You're going to have a different experience for most of them, and you could take a bunch of different approaches. Like Death Room, you could run up there chucking nades, you can run into the other enemy base with an SMG and spray them down, you can camp in the back with a sniper rifle. There's a bunch of different things you can do. But this, you're almost forced to take the same strategy and tactic every time, because it's rare that people will get close enough you can just sit there and camp with a sniper the whole time. While you might be a very good KDR player that way, you're not going to get a lot of kills, and the game's going to be boring. You're basically forced to rush out there and use the same strategy of hiding behind tanks and then jumping out and killing people pretty much for the entire game. So that's really all I wanted to talk about, guys. Thank you for listening to this. This was a first look at the Deadly Dunes map. Thank you for watching. I will have one on Hell's Gate when it's released. If that's the name they're planning on using, they might change the name. I have no idea. But thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Shadowlance out.